What is up, everyone? I'm Rusty, your local laboratory maniac. This is Lamman EDH, where we specialize in EDH deck building and talking about commander cards. This video will be about 3 decks I've built in paper. I did a similar video before on my channel. Go check that out if you haven't. Over 5 decks, but I summarized them a little too briefly. I will go into more detail on these decks in this video. Just to explain my thought process more and to show off more cards that you can put in the deck. Of course, deck links will be down in the description. There will be timestamps in the video if you want to see a specific one. We will be going over my liquid metal deck, my mono white burn deck, and my mono red Eldrazi deck. But before we jump into it, I want to thank all my subscribers. If you think this content is right for you, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button for more content just like this. Go ahead and enjoy the video, and now let's just jump on into it. So our first deck is called You're the One Playing Artifacts. The commander is Tawnos, Urza's Apprentice. It's a 1 blue, 1 red legendary creature, human artificer. Has haste, and you can pay a blue and a red, tap it, copy target activated or triggered ability you control from an artifact source. You may choose new targets for the copy, and you can't copy mana abilities. It is a 1/3. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever played other formats, and does it influence your deck building in EDH? I started with Standard back in the original Zendikar days. I think it was 2009. And then I eventually went to Modern, and then I went to EDH. I use decks from the Modern and Standard formats that I played back in the day to make decks in EDH. And this deck is a perfect example of that. If you've ever played Modern, you're probably at least a little familiar with this combo, and this is kind of what the deck is about. So you got Karn the Great Creator plus Liquimetal Coating. Karn is a 4 generic legendary planeswalker. It has a static ability that says activated abilities of artifacts your opponents control can't be activated. As a +1 ability that says until your next turn, up to 1 target non-creature artifact becomes an artifact creature with power and toughness equal to its mana value. Has a -2 ability that says you may reveal an artifact card you own from outside the game, or choose a face-up artifact card you own in exile and put that into your hand. And it starts as 5 loyalty. And then you got Liquimetal Coating. It's a 2 generic artifact. It taps to make target permanent, become an artifact in addition to its other types until the end of the turn. So basically, what the combo in Modern is anyway, is you use Karn to animate a land typically that you target with Liquimetal Coating. So you target with the coating, it becomes an artifact. You animate it with Karn, making it a 0/0 artifact land creature, which means it'll automatically die. In EDH, land destruction is kind of taboo. I wouldn't do that unless it's like a Gaia's Cradle or Field of the Dead or something. But the idea of turning things into artifacts and then doing things to benefit from that is what the theme of this deck is. And there's other cards. There's I think about 10 or 12 cards that will turn things into artifacts. So you got Liquimetal Torque. It's a 2 generic artifact. You tap it for a colorless, or you tap it to make target non-land permanent an artifact in addition to its other types until the end of the turn. Then you got Mycosynth Latus. It is a 6 generic artifact. It makes everything on the field, all spells and all permanents, colorless. And then you can spend mana as though it were any color, which, that last ability isn't what we're building around. So basically, if you have the Mycosynth Latus out, and then you have, let's say, the Great Creator out, Karn, it actually makes it so they can't tap their lands for mana. They can't use any activated abilities whatsoever. In Commander, it's kind of a soft lock because they can always just swing in at Karn and kill it, which would turn off the soft lock. But Mycosynth Latus is a really good card in this deck. And one reason we're playing Taunos is because we can copy the Liquimetal Artifacts. So if I tap this to make something an artifact, I can copy that with Taunos. And then before we get into what we're going to do with those kinds of abilities, let's go ahead and go over a lore spotlight. So the Mycosynth was released in spores throughout the plane of Mirrodin. And if you don't know this, Mirrodin used to be called Argentum, which was created, the whole plane was created by Karn. And then the changing metal into flesh and vice versa is what the mycosynth does, which made metallic growths go on skin of organic beings and also made artifact creatures turn into living organisms. The mycosynth was initially controlled by Mimnarch, who is in the deck. Mimnarch, by the way, was made by Karn. But upon his death, it spread out of control, infecting mirrored organisms and turning them into Phyrexians. Okay, so you're using artifacts to turn your opponent's stuff into artifacts. And that's a great strategy because there's a lot of things you can do with it. The first thing that comes to mind is red is really good at destroying artifacts. For example, you got Vandal Blast and Anzrag's Rampage. Both of them actually destroy all artifacts you don't control. So Vandal Blast is a 1 red sorcery, destroy target artifact you don't control, and then you can overload cost it to destroy each artifact you don't control. And then Anzrag's Rampage is a 3 generic, 2 red sorcery. Destroy all artifacts you don't control, then exile the top X card to your library, where X is the number of artifacts that were put into graveyards from the battlefield this turn. You may put a creature card exiled this way onto the battlefield. It gets haste, return it at the end step. So let's say you have Latest out or something, and then you play one of these. You essentially will destroy all permanents you don't control because all permanents would be artifacts, and then these destroy all artifacts you don't control. It's kind of a nasty combo. If you don't like it, you can obviously just put spot removal in. However, late game, when the game's going forever, no one can make any headway. You play this combo, and it's almost an instant scoop from everybody. Then you got Shattering Spree and Chandler. These are more spot removal. If you want to go more of the spot removal route, Shattering Spree can actually target multiple things. It's a 1 red sorcery with Replicate Red, destroy target artifact. So obviously this helps with if you're facing a lot of counter spells. They can only counter one of the copies of Shattering Spree, so you'd still be able to destroy multiple things if you want. And then you got Chandler. I love this guy because look at his name. Have you ever seen someone's name? It's like a card just saying, hey, this is Bob. Not Bob the Builder or Bob the Artificer. It's just Bob. It's just Chandler. He is 4 generic, 1 red. He's a legendary creature. You pay 3 red, destroy target artifact creature, and he's a 3/3. I saw this and I really wanted to put him in because I just think his ability isn't that great. However, his card's great and just its flavor alone. Some other spot removal, you got Horde Smelter Dragon. Now this guy can be a huge threat late game for sure. He's 4 generic, 2 red, creature dragon. He has flying. You pay 3 generic and a red, destroy target artifact. He gains +X+0, where X is that artifact's mana value, and it's a 5/5. So you use the Liquimetal coating to turn one of your opponent's highest CMC permanents into an artifact. Then use Horde Smelter Dragon to destroy it. It'll get a huge boost, and you can swing in with flying. Then you got Vishino Heretic. It's a 2 generic, 1 red. You can tap it, destroy target artifact, and then that artifact's controller loses damage equal to that artifact's CMC. And he's a 1/3. So again, you make their highest CMC card an artifact, then use this, tap it, destroy it, and do a bunch of burn damage. These two cards are good ways to slowly whittle your opponent down and hopefully get the game over soon. Now, destroying things is great, but we can also steal artifacts in blue and red. There's a lot of good ways to do that. You got Mimnarch, which I mentioned earlier. He's a 7 generic legendary artifact creature wizard. He has 2 abilities. His first ability is 1 generic, 2 blue. Target permanent becomes an artifact in addition to its other types. And then he has another ability that says 3 generic, 1 blue. Gain control of target artifact. And it's a 4/5. So 7 mana, you take control of any permanent, essentially. Now, people, when they see this card, freak out in a commander game. So keep that in mind. Keep your hex-proof cards handy because they're going to target this guy and they're going to try to kill it. And you permanently gain control of it. Not until he leaves the field or anything. You just gain control of it. Same thing with Dak Faden. He's a 1 generic, 1 blue, 1 red planeswalker. He has a +1 ability that lets target player draw 2, discard 2. He has a -2 ability, gain control of target artifact, and then he has a -6 ability that says You gain an emblem that says whenever you cast a spell that targets one or more permanents, gain control of those permanents, and he starts at 3. We probably won't be using his ultimate. What we will be using is that -2 to gain control of any artifact that we want. And of course, we decide what is and what isn't an artifact. So you can also copy things. So you can steal them, you can destroy them. Now you can copy them. You got Phyrexian Metamorph and Sculpting Steel. Both enter as copies of artifacts, although Phyrexian Metamorph can also enter as a copy of any creature. So your opponent has a good enchantment you want, a good planeswalker, a good anything. You turn it into an artifact, you use these, and then you can get your own copy. Another thing you can do is animate things. You can turn them into artifacts and then animate them. Like I said with Karn the Greek Creator, but we got Karn the Silver Golem. He's a 5 generic legendary artifact creature. When he blocks or becomes blocked, he gets -4/+4 until end of turn. You can pay 1 generic. Target non-creature artifact is an artifact creature with power and toughness equal to its casting cost until end of turn. It's a 4/4. So there's a couple things you can do here. You can make your non-creature artifacts creatures. You get some high CMC cards in here that you can just beat down with. That's one way to end the game. You can make your opponent's stuff creatures, so your other opponents can remove them easier. Maybe someone casts a Wrath of God or something, and then you can do this to animate their artifacts, so their artifacts get destroyed with the Wrath of God. Or you can do something like animate your creatures to block. Then you got Padim, Council of Innovation. It's a 3 generic 1 blue legendary creature, Vidalcan Artificer. Artifacts you control have hexproof, and at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control an artifact with the highest CMC or tied with the high CMC, you get to draw a card, and it's a 1/4. This guy is kind of sneaky. So I've had a game where I had the Horde Smelting Dragon, where I was swinging in for high damage. I activate the dragon to destroy something. They respond with swords to plowshare. Then since I had Penmine out, I actually used liquid metal coating to turn my dragon into an artifact, giving it hexproof, fizzling their spell. They didn't notice it because that's a combo people usually will not use, so they don't see the combo. There's a lot of combos in this deck where people will not see the line. So one all-star in this deck is Goblin Welder and has a few applications. So it's a 1 red mana creature, Goblin Artificer. You can tap it, choose target artifact a player controls and target artifact in that player's graveyard. If both targets are still legal as this ability resolves, that player simultaneously sacrifices the artifact that on their battlefield and returns the artifact from their graveyard to the battlefield. So it does the whole switcheroo, one artifact on their field, goes to the graveyard, one from the graveyard goes to the field. Now it says a player, so it can be your opponent's stuff. So let's say you got rid of their Soul Ring early on, because let's be honest, that turn 1 Soul Ring is getting out of here in this deck. It's going to be destroyed. You can switch that with if they have a Blightsteel Colossus on the field, or if they have a Sheoldred that's draining you every time you draw, you go ahead and make it an artifact, then switch it out with the Soul Ring. Or you can recur your own permanents. So you can recur your own artifacts from your graveyard, sacrifice whatever you want. If you have to make something an artifact to do it, fine. And then just to keep in mind, those liquid metal artifacts, the Torque and the Codeine, are both 2 CMC. And since this is kind of a secret commander thing, almost you need to search stuff, you need a tutor. So Tribute Mage is a great example. It's 2 generic, 1 blue. It's a creature human wizard. When it ETBs, you search your library for an artifact card that is converted mana cost 2, reveal that card and put it into your hand, then shuffle your library, and it's a 2/2. So basically this comes out, you can make an artifact and then copy the ability if you really want to. Um, but there's a lot, because remember, your commander actually does triggered abilities as well. So there's a lot of artifact tutoring in this just so you can get consistently the liquid metal artifacts. So, a question for you: how much redundancy is too much? Commander prides itself on being unique in its gameplay. That's why it's a singleton format. Not all games have to be the same, but you do have your commander, which is always there. So, in a sense, it's kind of always the same. It depends how much redundancy you have. I typically, when I have a theme I really want to go for, I hit redundancy pretty hard. I will use tutors. A lot of people don't like tutors, and that's okay. But if I have a secret commander kind of situation, kind of like this, where I'm trying to get those liquid metal artifacts onto the field, you need redundancy in order to do the thing your deck is meant to do. So, what about you? Do you play too much redundancy or not enough? Or what's your thoughts on that? Here's an example of redundancy for my commander. Now, I got Kirkesh Anaki Ancient. It's a 2 generic, 2 red, legendary creature, Ogre Spirit. When you activate an ability of an artifact, if it isn't a mana ability, you may pay 1 red, and if you do copy that ability, you may choose new targets for the copy, and he's a 4/3. Funny thing about the Anaki, they are the ogres that actually made Liliana's Veil. So they make very powerful artifacts. It's funny enough. But so this is going to do a similar thing to your commander. It copies an activated ability. Same thing with Rings of Bright Hearth, but this can copy any activated ability, not just artifacts. It's a 3 generic artifact. Whenever you activate an ability, if it isn't a mana ability, you may pay 2 colorless, or sorry, 2 generic. If you do copy the ability, you may choose new copy targets for the copy. Now, let's get into some of the artifact abilities. Now, if you don't have Thanos as your commander and you choose to go another path, of course, you wouldn't play these activated abilities. But since his ability is so good with the liquid metal ability by copying, turning multiple things into artifacts at a time, I obviously leaned hard into it. Here's two of my absolute favorites. They're very silly. So you got Magistrate's Scepter here. It's 3 generic artifact. You pay 4 generic, tap it, put a charge counter on Magistrate's Scepter, and then you can tap it, remove 3 charge counters from it, take an extra turn. So if you want to play this smartly, you would probably play it and kind of let it sit there for a minute and then put maybe 1 counter on it. No one will bat an eye. They won't be too scared. And then when it comes to your opponent's in step, you activate this ability, putting another charge counter on it, and then copying it with your commander, for example, to put 2 counters on it, and then you untap and remove the 3 counters. Now, if you have that Onaki spirit out and your commander and this, and you happen to have 7 mana, you could basically put all 3 at once, take an extra turn. That's another infinite combo piece if you want to take it that route. I typically won't, but you can take it that route. Then you got Transmogrifying Wand. It's a 3 generic artifact. When it enters with 3 charge counters on it. Then you can pay 1, tap it, remove a charge counter, destroy target creature. Its controller creates a 2/4 white ox creature token, activate only as a sorcery. Now, this is a really good card in this deck because you can, first of all, just to point out that remove a charge counter is a cost. So if I were to copy this ability, I would not have to remove another charge counter. It's still just the 1 charge counter, but you can destroy multiple things because that's the ability. So if you have this out, you pay 1 and then tap your commander, you destroy 2 creatures for 3 mana. That's a pretty good rate. And it's just silly that they they get an ox. One combo you can put in here is the Mindslaver combo. I think a lot of people know about this, but just in case, you got Mindslaver. It's 6 generic, legendary artifact. You pay 4 generic, tap it, sacrifice it. You control target players during their next turn. And then you have Academy Ruins, which is legendary land. You tap it for colorless. You pay 1 in a blue, tap it, put target artifact card from your graveyard on top of your library. So you really need what? You need 6, 10, 12 mana to activate this, but basically you can Mind Slaver someone continuously. And let's say if you have 15 mana, you could do everyone's turn if you have 2 activated ability copiers. So that's a little combo. I only do it very, very late game if the game needs to end. This is not something I search for sure. And then you got some of your bigger artifacts. You got Planar Bridge and Portal to Phyrexia. Planar Bridge is 6 generic legendary artifact. You can pay 8, tap it, search your library for a permanent card, and put it directly into the battlefield, then shuffle. Now, if you don't know this, Tezzeret, this is what's in Tezzeret's chest to let him like transport things. And it could get you any card in your deck, so it can actually get your Portal to Phyrexia, which would be flavorful and just so lore accurate. But Portal to Phyrexia is a 9 generic artifact. When it enters, each opponent sacrifices 3 creatures, which is a triggered ability that you can copy. Then at the beginning of your upkeep, put target card or target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. It's a Phyrexian in addition to its other types. Now, that's also a triggered ability. So this has 2 triggered abilities you can copy, and the game will resolve relatively quickly after this, hopefully. Um, and speaking of ending the game, these two are probably the most fun way to do it. You got the Millennium Calendar and the Grimoire of the Dead. The Millennium Calendar, which totally sounds like a Yu-Gi-Oh card. I got the Millennium Puzzle. No, but anyway, it's 1 generic legendary artifact. It says whenever you untap 1 or more permanents during your untap step, put that many time counters on the Millennium Calendar. Then you can pay 2 generic, tap it, double the number of time counters on it. And then it says when there are 1,000 or more time counters on Millennium Calendar, sacrifice it and each opponent loses 1,000 life. I like that you don't have to wait till the end step or upkeep or something for that last ability to trigger. But basically, that's going to end the game in like 99% of the time. They may have some kind of answer to protect themselves from it, but generally that's going to end the game. Then you got Grimoire of the Dead. It's 4 generic legendary artifact. You pay 1, tap it, discard a card, put a study counter on it. Then you can tap it, remove 3 study counters, and then you bring back all creatures from all graveyards onto the battlefield under your control. They're black zombies in addition to their colors and types. I've used this to actually win with this deck. So basically, at the end, I play this, and then at the end of my opponent's turn, I tap it, discard a card, and put a study counter on it. No one really bats an eye at that. And then I make sure I have my commander out and this, and then wait till the end turn of my opponent, and then activate this, copying it, putting 2 study counters on it. You still only have to discard 1 card. And then that way at the beginning of my turn, I can go ahead and tap it, remove the counters. A lot of people will not see this coming. They usually will look at other threats first. They don't perceive this to be a game ending card, which is a shame because this card's really cool. So that's essentially the deck. You make things into artifacts, you destroy them, you steal them, you copy them, and then you have activated abilities. You can actually go a legendary artifact route because there's a lot of legendary artifacts that actually will activate abilities that you could copy with this commander. You can go the artificer route if you want. There's so many cool routes for this deck to take. And let's just go ahead and get on to the next one here. So for our next deck, we got a mono white burn deck. I've had burn decks in the past, but I went way off the beaten path for this one. Our commander is Elish Norn, and she is a transform card, the Argent Etchings. So let's go ahead and read it. Elish Norn's 2 generic, 2 white legendary creature, Phyrexian Praetor, as Vigilance, and when a source an opponent controls deals damage to you or a permanent you control, that source's controller loses 2 life unless they pay 1 generic. Then 2 generic and white, sacrifice 3 other creatures, exile Elish Norn, then return it transformed under your control, activate only as a sorcery. So we're probably going to focus on that first ability. We're not going to really want to transform this too much. We will be in dire straits if we are transforming this. Now, the Argent Etchings is a saga. It has 3 chapters. The first chapter is incubate 2 5 times, then transform all incubator tokens you control. And then chapter 2 is creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain double strike until end of turn. Chapter 3 is destroy all other permanents except for artifacts, lands, and Phyrexians. Exile this card, then return it to the battlefield face up. Like I said, we're going to be using that burn damage. And before you say it, I know technically it's not burn damage. They're losing 2 life. It's not considered damage. But hey, when in white, you got to use your resources. This is a great commander. We can do a lot of shenanigans with this. So one reason I chose this commander outside of its ability is I love Elish Norn. I love all of her cards. I love the Phyrexians. It's one of my favorite parts of the Magic story. Now let's talk a little bit about the lore. The Argent Etchings, which is the backside of this Elish Norn, is a collection of pseudo-religious doctrine created and promoted by the Machine Orthodoxy. Everything the Phyrexians practice under the Machine Orthodoxy is designed to turn Mirrodin into a perfect new Phyrexian homeland. And here's a quote from the Argent Etchings. Skin is the prison of the blessed and the stronghold of the heretic. As you probably saw in the first deck, Phyrexians want to change people into machine monsters, so turning them into artifacts, and this just kind of proves it. Okay, let's get into some actual burn in this deck. One thing I like about white burn that maybe red burn doesn't do is usually it has to be a reciprocal thing. Usually they're doing something to you or they're doing something better than you, and then you react to it with this. Same thing goes for like white ramp. Usually white ramp is catch up ramp. So your opponent has to get more lands than you and then you get it. Same thing with this. It's they're doing damage and you're either doing it back or redirecting it to something. So, for example, you got Harsh Justice. It's 2 generic and a white, instant. Cast Harsh Justice only during the declare attacker step and only if you've been attacked this step. And then it says this turn, whenever an attacking creature deals damage to you, it deals that much damage to its controller. So if it's relevant, that creature is the one doing the damage. It's not this instant. So just keep that in mind. However, this is a perfect burn card. Let's say they attack you with 20 damage. You play this, they're also taking 20. And spoiler alert, this deck has a lot of ways to keep your life total up. It has a lot of ways to pillow for it, and so you don't take damage. So hopefully your opponent's lower than you, and you can actually kill them with that. Then there's Martyrdom. It is a 1 generic 2 white instant. Until end of turn, you may redirect to target creature you control any damage, any amount of damage. So let's say they're attacking you for 20. You can point to your Stuffy Doll and say, actually, that 20 is going to go to Stuffy Doll. So it's kind of like a pariah effect, which we have a couple, and we'll talk about that. But that's a good way to redirect damage and do damage to something else. Another cool thing is Eye for an Eye. It's 2 white instant. The next time a source of your choice would deal damage to you this turn, instead, that source deals that much damage to you, and Eye for an Eye deals that much damage to that source's controller. So this is actually a replacement effect. So if they attack you for 5 and you're both at 5 life and you cast this, you choose that creature as the source, you both would actually die at the same time. So just keep that in mind. So if they're trying to swing out for you at 100 damage and you have only 40 life, you play this, you're both probably going to die, but that's okay because it's an eye for an eye in this game. So that's a cool way to redirect damage. And look at this art. This is old fashioned. Actually came out in Arabian Nights. I have a video that's going to be talking about that here shortly. But anyway, so there's also Mirror Strike is a 3 generic 1 white instant. Target unblocked creature deals damage to its controller instead of to you this turn. This is a replacement effect. They attack you with Blightsteel. You play Mirror Strike. That Blightsteel actually deals damage to them, killing them. So you see how this burn is going. You're redirecting, you're taking damage and dealing damage. Another example, you got Comeuppance. It's 3 generic, 1 white, instant. Prevent all damage that would be dealt to you and planeswalkers you control this turn by sources you don't control. If damage from a creature source is prevented this way, Comeuppance deals that much damage to that creature. If damage from a non-creature source is prevented this way, Comeuppance deals that much damage to the source's controller. So, of course, there's a many applications for this. They try to fireball you for 20. You go ahead, play Comeuppance, you prevent that damage, and then it goes directly to them. And this is also could be a pseudo board wipe. If they're swinging at you, this will this will actually do damage to those creatures, hopefully killing a majority of them. Another redirect damage is Gideon Sacrifice. It's 1 mana instant. Choose a creature or planeswalker you control. All damage that would be dealt this turn to you and permanents you control is dealt to the chosen permanent instead. So, okay, you're hitting me for 20. I choose Stuffy Doll. Gideon Sacrifice does 20 damage to the Stuffy Doll. Oh, wait, does it say all damage that would be dealt to you this turn? Oh, okay. So actually, it's a replacement effect. The Gideon Sacrifice is not what's doing the damage. Whatever their source is what will be doing the damage. Another one is Saving Grace. It's a one generic, one white enchantment aura. It has flash. And it says enchant creature you control. When Saving Grace enters the battlefield, all damage that would be dealt to you this turn is actually dealt to enchanted creature instead. And technically, you have to put this on your own creature. But again, that Stuffy Doll example, and there's other cards in here that will deal with that. It just redirects it to them, so you're saving your own life. Then you got something like Nemesis Mask. Now, I put this in here because of Alice Norn's ability. I want them to block me because I want them to do damage to my permanents, which would make them pay. And if they can't pay that one generic per source of damage, they take two. Well, they don't take two damage, they lose two life. So you got Nemesis Mask is three generic artifact equipment. All creatures able to block equipped creature do so, and then as equipped three. So I've actually used this. I play this deck a bunch of times, and I've used this in order to do a whole bunch of damage to my opponents for because they'll always have a bunch of creatures. Now, I actually have a lot of equipment tutoring for effects like this just because it's so good. And here's that Stuffy Doll I've been talking to you about. Stuffy Doll is really cool. I have always loved it ever since it came out. I believe in no, it didn't come out in Innistrad, but it was printed in Innistrad as well, a reprint. That's where I first saw it. So Stuffy Doll is a 5 generic artifact creature construct, indestructible. As Doll enters the battlefield, choose a player. Whenever Stuffy Doll is dealt damage, it deals that much damage to chosen player, and then you can tap it. Stuffy Doll deals 1 damage to itself. It's a 0/1. And I actually have a Chucky version in this deck. Chucky, as you know, I'm a big Scary Movie fan. So when they made a Chucky doll for Stuffy Doll, man, I had to get it. I wish it was legendary. But anyway, you're redirecting all your stuff to effects like this. What else can you do? You got Phyrexian Vindicator. It's a 4 white creature, Phyrexian Horror, so it goes well with Elish Norn. It has flying, enough damage would be dealt to Phyrexian Vindicator, prevent it. When damage is prevented this way, Phyrexian Vindicator deals that much damage to any other target. It even has an Elish Norn quote on it, which is funny. It says, "Behold your inevitable defeat." And it's a 5/5. So your opponent swings at you for 20, you redirect it to Vindicator, and then you could do 20 damage to any other target. So you can do 20 damage to their life. And then you got Metropolis Reformer. It's 2 generic and a white. It's a creature, Angel Cleric, as flying and vigilance. You have hexproof, which is really good in Commander. That's an underrated ability right there. And it says whenever a Metropolis Reformer is dealt damage, you gain that much life. Okay, you attack me for 20. I redirect it to her and actually gain that much life. That is kind of insane. Some more redirect damage are the Pariah effects. You got Pariah and Pariah Shield. Both actually take damage from you and put it onto whatever creature these are attached to. There's a couple creatures that also do this. You got Protector of the Crown and Palisade Giant. Protector of the Crown, 5 generic, 1 white, creature, giant soldier. When it enters the battlefield, you become the monarch, and then all damage that will be dealt to you is dealt to Protector of the Crown instead, and it's a 2/5. And Palisade Giant also, actually, both of these are giant. Maybe that's just something giants do regularly. It's a 4 generic, 2 white creature, giant soldier. All damage that will be dealt to you or another permanent you control is dealt damage to Palisade Giant instead. So this is actually a little better because it actually redirects damage from another permanent you control. I didn't notice that at first. It is a 2/7, so it's got a pretty high toughness, but so what's some things we can do with this? With the pariah effects, you can actually make that creature indestructible, so any damage you take, it will take, and it won't really matter. So, like, Dark Steel Plate is one of the most generic indestructible equipments you can have. There's like a bunch out there. I have a lot of them in here. Like I said, I have a lot of equipment tutors because these pieces are important. So, it's 3 generic artifact equipment, indestructible, equipped creatures, indestructible, equipped 2. And another kind of theme I put in here are the in-core effects. Now, in-core are a race. They're the core. Everyone knows them. They were on Dominaria. Then they went. There are some on Zendikar as well. All of them have various abilities, except for one ability is always the same. You pay 0, redirect 1 damage from that in-core creature to a creature you control. And there's actually some combos you can do with this. So, for example, you got Outrunner in core. It's a 2 generic, 1 white creature. Core Rebel Knight as flanking. And then you can pay 0. The next 1 damage that would be dealt to Outrider in core this turn is dealt to target creature you control instead. And then part of the combo, have someone that gets boosted for being targeted by an effect. So, Angelic Protectors, a 3 generic, 1 white, is an angel, as flying, and when if it is the target of a spell or ability, it gets +0/+3 until end of turn. Well, you can activate obviously Outrider's effect multiple times, boosting this by a lot, and then using something like Worthy Cause, which is a 1 mana white instant. It has buyback 2, so when you cast it, you can pay 2 generic to put it back in hand. And it says sacrifice a creature, gain life equal to that creature's toughness. So you can basically gain infinite amount of life with this combo, if that's the way you go. I kind of just like the redirect effects. I did put this combo in just in case, the game goes late and blah, 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 and I just want to end the game. I just get infinite life and say, have fun. Most people will scoop. But the redirect damage is just on theme. And I thought there's about 9 or 10, I think, in core creatures. So, and they're pretty fun. They're named pretty crazy. Like it's Nomad, Lancer, Spirit. So, another thing, there are a lot of lands that are useful in this, like Core Havens, a legendary land. It has for colorless mana, and then you can pay 1 generic, 1 white to prevent all combat damage that would be dealt by target attacking creature this turn. So it basically fogs. And then you got Glacial Chasm, which is a game changer card. So if that's not your thing, no worries. You don't have to put this in there. But basically, you can attack, and all damage dealt to you is reduced by 0. But you also have to sacrifice a land when it comes into play, and it has a cumulative upkeep of 2 life. So it can get pretty brutal just to keep this around. I think obviously the drawbacks aren't as bad as the benefits, but still. Now this deck will go late game because you're doing everything to protect yourself basically. And people when they see that, they're going to start targeting you because they can't hurt you. So late game, as I've said in many videos, you want to use a mass recursion. So Ascend from Avernus is a good example. It's X 3 white sorcery. Return all creatures and planeswalker cards with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Exile this card. So you've lost 5, 6, 7 creatures throughout the game. You bring them all back. And then Storm of Souls is another good one. It's 4 generic, 2 white sorcery. Return all creature cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. Each of them is a 1/1 spirit with flying in addition to its other types. Exile Storm of Souls. Now, I'm not sure why these exile themselves. You see that a lot in extra turn abilities, but I don't know why it's like that in mass recursion abilities. Maybe that's something white mass recursion does. But these are just helpful, even though they're 1/1s. I mean, a 1/1 Elish Norn still has all the same abilities. A 1/1 Stuffy Doll actually increases in stats, for example. So there's various creatures that are still good as 1/1 spirits with flying. So that's essentially the deck. Redirect damage to your creatures or to your opponents, or do reciprocal damage to your opponents. Try to protect yourself, make yourself indestructible as well as your creatures. So when they do damage to you, you take no damage, like with pariah effects. And then late game, you might want to do some mass recursion. You definitely want your opponents to be blocking your stuff. You want to keep up blockers. So your commander with vigilance is really good. But that's the gist of this deck. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Now, this next deck I've play tested a couple times. I'm going to tinker around with it but it's so much fun. It's a mono red Eldrazi deck, which is typically not the colors you see. So we got Hairgas, Erupting Nullkite. It's 9 generic legendary creature, Eldrazi Dragon. It has an emerge cost of 8, so 6 generic, 2 red. Now, emerge is you may cast this spell by sacrificing a creature and paying the emerge cost reduced by that creature's mana value. And then it says, whenever you cast a spell, you may exile your hand. If you do, draw 3 cards. As flying, and then it says, each creature spell you cast has emerge. The emerge cost is equal to its mana value. And it's a 6/6. Now, this just instantly caught my eye. Very rarely do you see things like this transformed, and when you do, it's usually because of Emrakul. So Hairgeist is an Eldrazi dragon. Since it is a dragon that was warped into an Eldrazi rather than a pure Eldrazi brood, it seems likely that is one of the countless beings caught under the influence of Emrakul. Emrakul in the lore morphs living creatures into something essentially Lovecraftian. You saw that a lot in the Innistrad set where Emrakul invaded Innistrad. It made werewolves have tentacles, it turned vampires into these tentacle monsters. So it can get pretty crazy. Now, if you want to make a unique deck, you pick a theme that you like or have played and pick a color that doesn't normally do that. We're seeing that with this deck most of the time. If you pick red for whatever you're doing, it's going to be unique, except for like burn, obviously, or exile tribal effects, like play from exile effects. So if you have a favorite archetype, just make it red and just see what happens. It could just be a fun experiment. Now, of course, we have all the big Eldrazi in here. We want to cast them. We got Emrakul, the World Anew. It's 12 generic mana. It's a legendary creature Eldrazi. When you cast it, gain control of all creatures target player controls. It has flying and protection from spells and from permanents that were cast this turn. And then when it leaves the battlefield, sacrifice all creatures you control, and it has a madness cost of pay 6 colorless. And that's a 12/12. Now, keep in mind, there's a difference between generic mana and colorless. You have to pay 6 colorless mana, not 6 of any color. But all these Eldrazi's obviously have all these like just banger effects, and all the cost will be reduced, and we'll have some tricks on how to reduce them with that emerge cost. Then you got Ulamog the Defiler. It's 10 generic, legendary creature Eldrazi. When you cast this spell, target opponent exiles half their library, rounded up. It has a ward, sacrifice 2 permanents. When it enters the battlefield, it enters with a number of +1/+1 counters on it equal to the greatest mana value among cards in exile. And then it has Annihilator X, where X is the number of +1/+1 counters on it, and it's a 7/7. This thing could get really big. Basically, if you cast one of these, you're ending somebody. That's the good thing about the Eldrazi. They're hard to get to, they're hard to work up, even though our commander does cheat their cost. But you are casting them with the emerge cost. You're not putting them into play, so you will get the cash triggers for this. And I just love the lore of the Eldrazi. If you're not familiar with it, so the Eldrazi that we see, like the Emrakul and Ulamog, those aren't their real forms. Those are actually shadows. They can't enter a plane or they will utterly destroy it. And they don't want to destroy it, they want to consume it for its mana. They are based on cosmic beings from the writings of H.P. Lovecraft. He's a great scary movie. Well, I should say scary writer. He doesn't do movies back. He is actually from the 1930s. His writings were focused on unbeatable beings that drive people mad just by seeing them. Usually, the protagonists in those books lose or go insane. They either go insane or die. And I kind of like that Magic incorporated that into something new and scary. The Eldrazi weren't anything that you really saw in Magic, except for maybe a little bit of Merit Lage. But so, how are we really reducing all these costs? You got Exuberant Firestroker. It's a 2 generic, 1 red creature, human, druid, shaman. At the beginning of your end step, if you control a creature with power 5 or greater, you may have this creature do 2 damage to target player, and it taps for mana, and it's a 1/1. So, You can tap this for mana and then sacrifice it for its emerge cost, so that reduces it by 4. And then you actually got Red Eldrazi that tap for mana. So you got Warden of Geometries. It's a 4 generic creature, Eldrazi drone, vigilance, and you can tap it, add a colorless to your mana pool. And you're going to need colorless in this deck. So, and it's a 2/3. So you can tap this and sacrifice it, and that's 5 mana ritual essentially. So you can so you'd only have to pay like, I don't know, 4 mana for your commander if you wanted to play. So turn 5, you can play your commander pretty easy. Then you have other ways to cheat cost. You got Darksteel Monolith. It's an 8 generic artifact, indestructible. Once each turn, you may pay 0 rather than pay the mana cost of a colorless spell you cast from your hand. Okay, so I cast Emrakul for 0 mana. Who doesn't love that? And people are definitely going to be intimidated by this deck, but I'll explain why they shouldn't be so intimidated. So you got Urza's Incubator. It's a 3 generic artifact. When it comes to play, you name a creature type, and then the creature spells you cost of that type are reduced by 2 colorless. So one other thing you can do is actually steal your opponent's creatures and sacrifice them. I've done that. You can actually make your whole deck themed around that if you want. I only put a couple things in here, like Insurrection, one of the classic just win the game cards. It's 5 generic, 3 white, sorcery. Untap all creatures, gain control of them until end of turn, they gain haste. And then you got Song Mad Treachery. Now, this can count as a land, so putting this in costs you basically nothing. So it's a 3 generic, 2 red, sorcery. Gain control of target creature until end turn. Untap that creature, it gains haste. And so you can steal their creature and then sacrifice it for its emerge call for an emerge cost that of a creature in your hand. Now, the reason why your opponent really shouldn't be too scared is because I have never won a game by just swinging and beating face with large Eldrazi's in this deck. They always get dealt with pretty fast. The threat assessment of seeing Eldrazi just like raises alarms, of course. You know, if you're playing anything with Annihilator, it should raise alarms. I never win with that. What I win with actually are effects like these. You got Sarkhan's Unsealing. It's 3 generic, 1 red. And by the way, what is he unsealing in this art? He is unsealing the Eldrazi. Sarkhan is an idiot. So this is an enchantment. It says whenever you cast a creature spell with power 4, 5, or 6, Sarkhan's Unsealing deals 4 damage to any target. Then if you cast a creature spell with power 7 or greater, it deals 4 damage to each opponent and each creature in Planeswalker they control. So this could be essentially be a board wipe. You play your Emrakul and you board wipe your opponent. It's not a complete board wipe, but it can be. It depends what size creatures they have. Then you got effects like Warstorm Surge. It's 5 generic, 1 red enchantment. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. That's right. We're essentially burning our opponents, which is what red does best. So why not use what red does best with the strategy we want to use? Now, there's a couple more effects that do this. You got Screamer Killer. It's 4 generic, 1 red, creature Tyrannid. It says trample. It says whenever you cast a creature spell with mana value of 5 or greater, this creature deals 5 damage to any target. And it's a 5/5. So again, you're casting things and just burning their life away essentially. Then you got Barrage Tyrant. It's a 4 generic, 1 red creature Eldrazi. It has the Void, and it costs 2 generic and a red. Sacrifice another colorless creature. This creature deals damage equal to its sacrificed creature's power to target creature or player, and it's a 5/3. It's like, okay, I can't attack you. You got a pillow fort going on. I'll just sacrifice my Emrakul to do damage equal to its power to your life. Oh, you're going to board wipe? Okay, Barrage Tyrants, fling stuff at your face. This is essentially one of the best flings you could have in this deck. Now, Eldrazi, as you probably know, have some good board wipe options. You definitely want to put these in your deck. You got Calamity of Titans and All Is Dust. Calamity is a 4 generic, 2 colorless. Like I said, you have to pay the colorless for that. It's a sorcery. As an additional cost to cast a spell, reveal a colorless creature in your hand. Exile each creature and planeswalker with mana value less than the revealed creature's mana value. So if you reveal an Emrakul, it's essentially exile each creature and planeswalker. And this includes yours. It doesn't say your opponent's control. So and then you got all his dust. It's 7 generic tribal sorcery Eldrazi. So this is technically an Eldrazi spell. It says each player sacrifices all permanents they control that are one or more colors. So basically, sacrifice anything not colorless. And a lot of your cards will be colorless. So some of your cards even have Devoid, which makes them colorless even though they use red mana. And it's just one of the most brutal board wipes to recover from. And then you got stuff like Echoes of Eternity. It's 3 generic, 3 colorless, Kindred enchantment, Eldrazi. They did change Tribal. You see on All Is Dust, this is an older All Is Dust. It has Tribal. They did change it to Kindred. If a triggered ability of a colorless spell you control or another colorless permanent you control triggers, that ability triggers an additional time. Then, whenever you cast a colorless spell, copy it. You may choose new targets for the copy. This is just a brutal. Oh my god. You're doubling casting triggers of your Eldrazi. And then, whenever you cast a color spell, you copy it. Insane. This is one of the cards you definitely want to see all the time. It is harder to cast because of that 3 generic or 3 colorless, but and even for this deck, one way to add flavor to your deck is pick basic lands that are on theme. They made basic mountains with Eldrazi in them, which of course I grabbed and put a bunch in here. Now, question for you. What mono red deck do you think would be fun to do in a theme red normally doesn't do? I've been technically thinking of doing a mono red fog deck, and that is actually a possible deck. I've designed it. I don't know if I'm going to make it though. Thank you so much for watching the till the end of this video. I really appreciate it. If you have any ideas of decks you want me to make for you, go ahead and put them down in the comments below. If you're going to make any of these decks, go ahead, check out those deck links down below. It will hopefully inspire you to make your own version of these decks. But until the next video, I'll be seeing you.